After getting married, my husband began seeing another woman, but I acted indifferent. This mistress flaunted her lifestyle, spending extravagantly. I provoked her intentionally, thinking, is this supposed to impress me? True luxury is about exclusivity. If he truly wastes all his money on you, I can easily walk away. Strangely, every time my husband spent on his mistresses, I felt satisfied, knowing I'd get double in compensation. I saw myself as the star of this drama, calmly sipping my coffee and observing a young woman approaching. She was elegant and beautiful, one of my husband's lovers, Kylie Sullivan. Kylie stopped in front of me, removed her sunglasses, and with a mocking tone asked, "Are you Wesley Thompson's wife?" Ignoring her sarcasm, I smiled faintly, nodded, and said, "Yes, that's me." She pulled out a chair, sat down with her arms crossed, and demanded, "Are you the one keeping Wesley from contacting me?" I smiled lightly and asked, "Why would you think that?" She gave me a disdainful look and said sharply, "If not for you, how could he suddenly stop reaching out? Face it, no man can resist young, attractive women forever. You're not young anymore. Do you really expect him to stay interested in you? In this day and age, it's rare to find a man committed to just one woman. At least you're lucky he hasn't divorced you." Her words stung, but I touched my face and reassured myself. Despite my age, I invest heavily in skincare, so I'm far from losing my appeal. Generally, I don't pay much attention to mistresses, but Kylie's arrogance was unbearable. Initially, I planned to be polite, but I changed my mind. Taking out my phone, I showed her a photo of a stunning woman from my gallery and said impatiently, "The person coming between you and Wesley isn't me, it's her. A man like Wesley, wealthy and surrounded by beautiful women, isn't going to genuinely care about any of you. Be honest with yourself. Can you really compete with his latest flame?" Kylie's expression soured as she gripped her phone tightly. Frustrated, she said, "That's impossible. I know Wesley has other women, but he'd never leave me for them. He told me I'm the one he loves most, and we've been together for 2 years. I replied, "Exactly. With so many women around him, how can I possibly control anything? You've been with him for 2 years, and I've never interfered. So why would I start now? You invited me here to confront me, and yet I still came. Do you know why? Are you trying to prove something?" Kylie hesitated, and I couldn't help but feel disappointed. Despite her beauty, she lacked intelligence. I added, "I'm not worried about how many women Wesley sees. My real fear is that he'll eliminate all of you one by one until only one remains. Do you understand?" Kylie seemed startled, finally grasping my point. "You're afraid Wesley might fall for that woman and threaten your position," she said. I nodded. "That's right. You don't love Wesley. You're just after his money. I don't mind him spending on you, but today I wanted to remind you who your true competition is. If you want to win, figure that out." After our long conversation, Kylie softened. She began listening and eventually asked, "Don't you care that Wesley is with other women?" Pretending to be emotional, I wiped away non-existent tears and said, "Of course I care, but what can I do? He won't change, so I've learned to be forgiving. That's how a marriage survives." Kylie looked at me with pity and awkwardly tried to comfort me, calling me a good person and urging me not to be upset. After she left, I couldn't help but laugh. I wasn't sad at all. In fact, I hope Wesley spends even more money on his mistresses. It benefits me in the end. Lately, though, I've noticed he's been spending less on them, which worried me. After investigating, I discovered he was infatuated with a woman named Rachel Anderson. Unlike the others, Rachel had managed to captivate him entirely, and he was far more generous with her than anyone else. But focusing on one lover doesn't bring me the same advantages as having multiple. That's why I met with Kylie, to motivate her to work harder and ensure Wesley doesn't start saving money. I left the meeting in high spirits and indulged in some shopping. When I got home, my son, Nathan, saw my shopping bags and criticized me, accusing me of wasting money and disrespecting his father's hard work. I thought to myself, if Wesley doesn't mind spending on other women, why shouldn't I, his legal wife, do the same? Yet Nathan defended his father, claiming he could spend his money however he pleased. It's a shame this ungrateful boy is my son. When I married Wesley, he had nothing. I invested all my savings, and my parents even sold their home to support his business. Although I sacrificed my career to fully dedicate myself to caring for the family and raising Nathan Thompson, neither of them ever appreciated it. Over time, I stopped feeling hurt or upset about this household and instead became emotionally detached. Now, my only reason for staying is to extract the last bit of value from Wesley. Around 1 a.m., Wesley returned home drunk. I was in the living room, enjoying a late-night snack while watching a movie. Hearing the noise, I sarcastically remarked, "Back already? Done with your cozy spot so soon? Or is age catching up with you?" Wesley glared at me and snapped, "Can you just keep quiet for once?" I smirked and continued, "Am I wrong? Isn't this all about paying to preserve your ego? Otherwise, those women wouldn't think you had anything to offer." Tossing his coat aside, Wesley retorted smugly, "So what if I do? They want money and I've got plenty. Spending on them makes me happy." "You're just jealous, Diana. The nastier you get, the more I enjoy being around other women. Why don't you just divorce me?" Mistaking my silence for hurt feelings, Wesley smirked again and headed upstairs to his room. Sitting under the dim light, I calmly resumed eating my snack. Scenes like this had become routine, and every time I pushed him, Wesley was quick to lavish his mistresses with money. He wasn't entirely wrong. I didn't want a divorce right now because he was still my financial support. How could I let him live freely if I didn't make the most of him first? While watching the movie, I noticed Wesley's spending was still focused solely on Rachel, which worried me. I decided to meet Kylie again to ask if she wanted to reconcile with him. Rolling her eyes, she replied, "Forget it. Men always chase after something new. Wesley's lost interest in me. He gave me money and said he's found his true love. He doesn't want anything to do with me anymore. Honestly, I've had enough. He's given me plenty over the last 2 years, and I'm ready to move on. I don't need to depend on men. I'll focus on myself now, maybe even explore relationships with younger guys." I admired her boldness but felt disappointed, realizing I'd lost another opportunity to gain something from her. Sensing my displeasure, Kylie grew nervous, likely thinking I wanted the money back. Trying to calm her, I smiled slightly and said, "Relax, Kylie. You've been with him for so long. It's your effort, too. I won't take anything from you." Her expression shifted to something unreadable, unsure whether my comment was a compliment or an insult. Finally, she sighed and let it go. Before leaving, she added, "That woman you mentioned last time, her name is Rachel. She's stunning, and Wesley is completely taken with her. He's even let go of everyone else for her. This time he seems serious, and you might be in trouble." I smiled faintly and thanked her for the warning, but her words left me feeling uneasy. Wesley had clearly been wanting a divorce for a long time. He didn't even try to hide his mistresses, sometimes even using them to provoke me into arguing. Whenever I did, he'd side with them just to upset me and push me toward filing for divorce. With his resources, he could easily finalize a divorce, divide some assets, and move on. But since he couldn't justify ending things himself, he kept me in this constant cycle of frustration. This time, however, felt different. Wesley was unusually secretive about Rachel. It wasn't about hiding his affairs from me. It seemed like he genuinely cared for her and wanted to shield her from my anger. Curiosity got the best of me. I wanted to see if this woman, Rachel, could offer me enough security to willingly let go. Wesley's spending had noticeably decreased since she entered the picture, and I couldn't help but feel frustrated. Listening to daily updates about his reduced expenses made me want to scream. Rachel hadn't just blocked the other women's access to Wesley, but also ruined the supposed true love they shared. Worst of all, she didn't even profit from it. What were a few designer bags, necklaces, or luxurious hotel stays worth in comparison to what I wanted? A house, a car, shares, or even high-end jewelry from an auction. I had no patience left, so I decided to confront Rachel. She looked breathtaking in the photos, but meeting her in person explained Wesley's fascination. Rachel wasn't just outwardly beautiful. Her gentle demeanor and refreshing personality gave her an innocent charm, like a delicate flower. When she saw me, she seemed anxious, likely expecting trouble. She quickly said, "I never meant to ruin your marriage. Wesley and I are together because we genuinely like each other. I just want to spend time with him. Please don't break us apart." I didn't bother to dig into whether she was sincere. Instead, I gave a faint smirk and thought, "Do you really think I care?" Wesley's past lovers all claimed they truly cared for him too. Don't get me wrong. I'm not here today to convince you to leave him. I just wanted to see what kind of person his new partner is and how she made him so petty. I gave her a cold, assessing look. She looks good, but her personality doesn't seem very appealing. She thought a few sweet words from a man meant he truly liked her. How naive. Actually, the more a man spends on you, the more genuine his feelings are. There was once a woman who followed Wesley for 2 years and nearly drained our family's wealth. I recently heard that Wesley is so smitten with someone that he's pushed all other women away. I thought there might be a new threat to my position. That's all I came to observe today. Don't worry. Wesley spends a bit of money on women, but I don't mind. I just wanted to meet you to see for myself. I glanced at her bag and commented casually. This bag came out last year, didn't it? Wesley is getting stingy. He actually gave you this kind of gift. Rachel looked a little uncomfortable and stammered, That's not true. I like it, so he bought it for me. Wesley is really nice to me and very generous. But of course, his wealth belongs to both of you, so I can't spend freely. Honestly, I didn't even want to accept it. I raised my eyebrows. Oh, do you mean Wesley values me the most as his legal wife? Did he not mention that he plans to divorce me and marry you? I laughed. It genuinely sounded amusing. Rachel was nothing like the women who used to look down on me. Even when I provoked her, she didn't get upset. She responded gently, You've been with Wesley for so many years. Of course he should value you. My connection with him was just a fleeting moment. I know I was wrong, and I completely understand why you'd be unhappy with me. If Wesley asks me to leave, I won't complain. I've never had much need for material things anyway. Whatever Wesley gives me represents his feelings, and no matter how big or small, I'll cherish it. She sounded like an ordinary girl, the kind who easily gets lost in love and has no ambitions. If it weren't for the brief sadness in her eyes, I might have believed her entirely. Now, I feel reassured. She doesn't seem like someone who's satisfied with a mundane life but lacks the means to change it. Sure enough, I was right. The next day, Wesley came back furious. You went to see Rachel, didn't you? Who gave you permission? Wesley stared at me, suspicion all over his face. What's wrong? Did she tell you something? I asked, casually picking at my fruit platter, not in the mood to argue. Wesley suddenly walked over, knocked my plate over, and yelled, Diana Fleming, stop harassing Rachel! You have no right! He continued threateningly, If you dare do this again, I won't let you off! I stared at him coldly. So what are you going to do? Make my life harder? Wesley retorted. Rachel is simple and kind-hearted. She doesn't want to hurt you or take my money. But you went to her just to mock and bully her? If you keep this up, I'll spend everything on her and even give her the family fortune. His words made me laugh uncontrollably. Go ahead and spend whatever you want. Nobody owes anyone anything. Wesley's hands shook in anger as he slammed the door and left. Nathan, who had been hiding nearby, finally stepped out and sneered, Serves you right for making Dad angry. Once he hands all the money to Aunt Rachel, you'll regret it. Wiping my tears of laughter, I asked, Do you know Rachel? Nathan replied confidently, Of course I do. Aunt Rachel is so nice, gentle, and beautiful. Dad is right about her. She's not materialistic and is really kind. I like her a lot, and so does Dad. If you keep upsetting her, Dad will only get angrier. At that point, I didn't care anymore. Since you all love Rachel so much, I wish you a happy little family. When your dad actually gives her the family fortune, I'll step aside and let her take my place. Nathan, thinking I was just speaking out of anger, smirked. Do you really think Dad won't do it? If you keep being dishonest, you'll definitely be kicked out. I smiled faintly. We'll see. I'm looking forward to that day. Rachel's influence seemed to be working. In the days that followed, Wesley went on a spree, showering her with gifts and transferring large sums of money. Every time I received a system notification of these transactions, I felt strangely satisfied. A few days later, Rachel asked to meet again. This time her outfit was 10 times better, but she remained gentle and polite. Wesley didn't give you a hard time, did he? She asked with concern. A hint of regret crossed her face. It's my fault. I shouldn't have said anything. I wasn't complaining. I just wanted him to focus more on you and not be upset because of me. I think he misunderstood. Did you two have a fight? When I asked him, he wouldn't say anything, just kept buying me expensive gifts and transferring money. It made me feel uneasy, so I wanted to check in with you. She glanced at me, seeming to relax when she saw I was fine. I smiled lightly. Thank you. I've been doing well lately. She mentioned Wesley again, laughing as she recalled how he told her, If I upset Diana again, I'll give her everything and leave with nothing. Rachel's expression noticeably changed. I continued, I'd really like to see if you have the ability to make that happen, Rachel. Let's make a bet. If you can get Wesley to transfer 80% of his assets to you within 3 months, I'll step aside and won't hold you accountable for the mistresses. But if you can't make it happen, I said, pointing at her expensive outfit, I'll recover everything you own through legal channels. What do you think about that? Rachel's expression darkened as she gripped her cup tightly, her gaze sharp and piercing. Do you really want to fight me? She asked coldly. Are you sure I can't accomplish it? No, let's look at it differently, I replied. You can sense how much faith I have in you, right? I truly believe you're capable of it. Don't you think so yourself? I paused for a moment, letting the tension build, then added mockingly, if you lack confidence, just admit defeat, apologize, and return our shared assets to their rightful place. Otherwise, use your abilities to rise to the top. Rachel froze for a moment, and the innocent, delicate demeanor she had, like a pure white flower, vanished. She gave a frosty smile and said, Diana, I never wanted us to be enemies, but since you're set on this path, I'll wish you good luck. I'm eager to see how it turns out. I raised my cup with a challenging smirk, and the atmosphere in the room grew tense and heavy. I simply want to face a clever and capable opponent, I remarked. The effect of our exchange was unmistakable. I couldn't determine how Rachel had managed to influence Wesley, but he began moving his assets around frequently. Without a systematic pattern, it was nearly impossible to trace evidence of property transfers to his mistresses. Over the next 2 months, Wesley rarely came home, and even Nathan stayed out overnight occasionally. On my birthday, the house felt especially deserted. Mrs. Morris, as always, prepared an elaborate dinner for me. She hesitated before saying, Ma'am, perhaps Sir took Nathan on a trip, which is why he couldn't be here to wish you a happy birthday. I smiled at her gently. Mrs. Morris, you're aware of our situation. There's no need to try and comfort me. I'm not upset. Mrs. Morris fell silent, her discomfort evident. To lighten the mood, I invited her to join me for dinner, even opening a fine bottle of wine. After a few glasses, Mrs. Morris seemed to lower her guard and began venting. Honestly, ma'am, you have an unbelievable amount of patience. That woman is completely out of line. Are you seriously willing to put up with this? She's tearing this family apart. I nodded slightly, feeling as though I couldn't hold back any longer. Seeing this, Mrs. Morris seemed to interpret my reaction as a show of determination. Exactly, she exclaimed. Even if a man isn't fully committed, he won't casually hand over such a massive inheritance. Take a page from those women who know how to charm. They always find ways to keep their man from giving up completely. But no, you can't bring yourself to do that, can you? Laughing softly, I finished my meal and grabbed the cake. I'm heading out, I said. Mrs. Morris asked, Are you going to celebrate with a friend? I nodded. There are a few old acquaintances I should reconnect with. Using the GPS, I drove to a newly purchased villa. As I parked, faint laughter and cheerful voices reached my ears. My son's voice was unmistakable. I rang the doorbell, and Nathan quickly came to open it, with Rachel standing quietly behind him. Both froze in shock upon seeing me. From the living room, Wesley's voice called out, Who is it? Ignoring the two at the door, I walked inside without hesitation. The villa had a much cozier atmosphere than our house. Wesley was playing with Nathan's blocks, and my arrival visibly soured the mood. His cheerful expression turned stern as he demanded, What are you doing here? Holding up the cake, I said brightly, It's my birthday, and I've come to celebrate it with my husband and son. Doesn't that sound festive? Nathan's voice cut through the room angrily. This is Aunt Rachel's house. It's incredibly rude for you to just barge in like this. Looking at Rachel, I asked, Am I intruding? Rachel was startled, but quickly composed herself with a soft smile. Of course not. Since it's your birthday, we should absolutely celebrate. However, your visit is so sudden. I wasn't prepared for it. You brought a cake, but it's not very convenient right now. Why don't you sit down while I order takeout instead? Before I could respond, Wesley snapped, What takeout? Don't bother with her. She's just here to stir up trouble. He turned to me with a sharp tone. Diana, I don't care why you came or what you're trying to do, but you'd better leave now, or I won't be polite about it. Feigning innocence, I replied, Oh, and what exactly are you planning to do? Hit me? Call the police? Maybe you'd like the whole world to know that you're spending time with my son and your mistress while I, the poor, traditional wife, just wanted to celebrate her birthday with her family but got thrown out? If you're up for that, I'll gladly cooperate. But for now, let's keep things calm. I straightened my posture, meeting their glares. Today is my birthday. I brought cake to celebrate, so let's eat it and enjoy ourselves. Rachel, looking uneasy, quietly suggested, Wesley, don't act impulsively. Diana only came to celebrate her birthday. Let's not turn this into a big deal. Ignoring her, I addressed Wesley directly. Eat the cake, and then we can discuss the divorce. Are you on board? For a moment, he looked conflicted, but eventually reached for the cake. As he did, I intentionally let it slip from my hands. It hit the ground with a loud thud, breaking open and scattering everywhere. Oh no! I exclaimed dramatically. It fell, but no problem. I can still pick it up and eat it. You three can share it too. Wesley's face twisted with rage. Diana, are you doing this on purpose? Maintaining my calm, I responded, I always keep my promises. If we share this cake peacefully today, we can sign the divorce agreement without any fuss. If not, I'll have someone investigate what's happening here. Let's see how your company's stocks handle that kind of attention. Nathan couldn't stop himself from exclaiming angrily, You could have just let us have the cake. Why did you have to throw it on the floor on purpose? I glanced at him indifferently and responded, It doesn't mean anything. I simply felt like doing it. Is that not allowed? Diana, you heartless person, Wesley snarled, his teeth clenched. You can torment me however you want, but I'll never give in when it comes to Rachel. Rachel suddenly interrupted, her eyes fixed on mine. Did you really mean it when you said if we ate the cake, you'd divorce Wesley? I gave her a faint smile and nodded. That's exactly what I said. Wesley turned to Rachel, shock written across his face, his guilt and heartbreak obvious. Nathan, glaring at me with fury, yelled, Just eat it already. You're a wicked woman, and I hope you get divorced from my dad soon. We don't want to see you anymore. Seeing my son's hatred toward me didn't stir any emotion. I simply acted as if he wasn't my child and calmly pulled out a chair, sitting down to quietly watch them eat the cake. It was meaningless, just a way to make them feel uncomfortable. As they reluctantly divided and ate the ruined cake, I handed Wesley the divorce agreement. His expression grew more complicated the longer he read it. He seemed unable to believe what he was seeing and asked, Are you really sure you want to walk away with nothing? Without hesitation, I replied, I couldn't care less about your worthless junk. Hurry up and sign it so I can go home and sleep. Tomorrow morning, I'll finalize everything at the Civil Affairs Bureau. Wesley hesitated, clearly unsure. Nathan urged him, Dad, just sign it already. She never wanted any of this stuff in the first place. It's all your money. I looked at Wesley as though I wanted to explain something, but stopped myself. In the end, I signed my name on the agreement, gave him a mocking smile, and left with my copy in hand. The next day, at the Civil Affairs Bureau, Wesley said, I know you're acting impulsively right now. I didn't actually mean to leave you with nothing. We can rewrite the agreement. I'll include some financial compensation for you. I rolled my eyes and thought to myself, Who cares about your petty money? Keep it for your own burial expenses. Out loud, I said, Please hurry up and finish the paperwork. I don't want to waste my afternoon. I have a salon appointment. Wesley's reaction was priceless. He probably couldn't understand how I had become so detached, indifferent to both him and his wealth. But what he didn't know was that almost all his assets had already been transferred to me. I had drained him of everything valuable and was now worth more than he was. That was enough for me to live comfortably, though I knew difficult times awaited him after our divorce. Thanks to the legal protections for wives, it wasn't just about financial compensation. A cheating husband, an ungrateful son, and immoral mistresses, they all deserved consequences. Wesley thought he could live happily with Rachel after the divorce, but everything was about to change. The company ran into massive problems and its assets were seized. In no time, their comfortable lives turned into misery. Wesley not only went bankrupt, but was also arrested for misconduct in his company. Rachel, who believed she had secured billions, lost everything before she could enjoy it. She struggled to keep going and eventually came to me asking directly, You knew this would happen, didn't you? You planned all of it, right? In just a few days, she had gone from a graceful lady to a worn-out shell of herself, her flawless image shattered. I shook my head and told her, It wasn't my doing. You and Wesley brought this on yourselves. I merely waited quietly for the consequences to unfold. What are you talking about? She snapped. This has nothing to do with us. Wesley and I couldn't possibly cause such trouble for ourselves. People who create their own problems can never escape the results, I replied coldly. You're morally corrupt and ungrateful. You cling to your mistresses, refuse to end relationships with married men, and interfere in others' marriages. On top of that, you have a son who values money over loyalty. How could you conspire with outsiders against your own mother? Did you really think it would end well for you? I don't even dislike the women around Wesley, I continued. I understand why they're tempted by power and money, but they're smarter than you. They chose to walk away. You're the ambitious one, treating me as your rival and trying to take everything. Yet in the end, this is what happens. Rachel wasn't willing to back down. She shot back, "What woman gets close to Wesley without wanting more? Aren't they all trying to outdo you? How can you blame me for that?" "Oh, I should have been clearer," I said sarcastically. "You're clever. Those women have ideas, but they lack the skill and vision to execute them. They settle for small gains. You, on the other hand, are smart enough to go all in. But with that ambition comes the consequences." "Diana, you're just using me," she retorted. "You knew this would happen, and you deliberately provoked me while letting Wesley transfer everything to me. What's the point of figuring it out now? But I should thank you. Without your schemes, I'd still be stuck with Wesley. At least now I can move on. Think about it. You're better off than him. At worst, you can start fresh. Do you really want to end up in jail with him?" I said it lightly, but Rachel took it as a threat. She seemed genuinely afraid I could have her arrested. Panicked, she left without another word. As for my so-called son, he was terrified. Eventually, he came to my new home, looking pitiful and dirty like a street kid. Crying, he ran toward me, calling out, "Mommy!" I pushed him away and said, "Don't come near me. Didn't you say I wasn't your mom? I don't have a son like you." Through his tears, he begged, "I'm sorry, Mom. Dad got arrested, our house was seized, and I can't pay my school fees. They've kicked me out of school. What should I do?" "Nathan, this has nothing to do with me. Go find your guardian." Nathan cried for a long time before suddenly asking, bewildered, "How can you still live in such a nice place? How do you still have so much money?" "How much money I have is none of your concern," I responded. "I haven't used a single penny from the Thompson family. Your dad's money is tied up in court. You should go to the police." Nathan broke down into tears again. "I don't care. You're my mom, so you have to take care of me." I gave him a sharp, cold look, holding his gaze. "Nathan, have I spoiled you so much that you no longer value me? Listen carefully. Every time you disrespect me, side with your father to undermine me, or favor the women he's involved with, it tears me apart. You'd better stay away from me right now. Your survival is not my responsibility. If you come any closer, think carefully about the consequences. Do you truly believe I'm so weak that I won't hold a grudge? You always claim that Wesley earns all the money in this household, so my opinions don't matter and he can treat me however he likes. But ask him how he makes that money. Doesn't some of the credit belong to me? I sacrificed so much to raise you and did everything for your sake. Do you remember when you were young, timid, and delicate? Your dad was too busy with work, so I gave up my career to spend all my time with you. And this is how you repay me? You actually think the women your father is seeing are better than I am? If that's what you believe, then go ahead and rely on them. Don't come to me again. What happened to your dad is his responsibility, and as his son, you're not exempt from it. We're all in this together. Do you understand? Go back to the Thompson family. Your grandparents are there to take care of you. I'll give you $1,000 a month at most, because it's my obligation. Don't worry. I won't expect anything from you in return later." Nathan stood there in shock, needing time to process everything. His hand trembled as he reached out, attempting to pull me toward him. I stepped aside and coldly told him to leave. Nathan walked away, looking lost and dejected, without any more tears or outbursts. Whether he can handle what I said doesn't matter to me anymore. From now on, I intend to free myself from the burdens of this family and finally regain my independence. The future is mine to enjoy without any more worries.